Welcome to the Healing Sucks podcast, y'all. I'm your host, Jackie Hall, survivor, educator, and future certified therapist specializing in trauma and abuse. I'm not a doctor or board certified, but many of my guests are, and they bring their expert advice to help us navigate the healing journey. This podcast is all about giving survivors a voice, sharing powerful stories, and bringing in mental health professionals to shed light on the issues that affect us all. If you're looking to learn, grow, and heal, this is the place for you. Let's dive in. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Healing Sucks podcast. I'm going to be completely honest. The first 8 minutes of this episode did not get any of my dialogue. I have no idea what happened. So here I am re-recording the intro. It is what it is. Okay, so today on the podcast, I have BB. BB is a DV and SA survivor, and she is also an author. She has written the book called No Ordinary Love, and it is now out and available for everyone to buy off of Amazon. February 12th, you will be able to purchase it everywhere else. So this book is absolutely amazing. Her writing is really, really well. I felt like I was reading a thriller type of movie, which thrillers are my favorite movie. So like it had me on the edge of my seat the whole time. I could feel every emotion that she wrote about, even whenever she was like getting that feeling in her stomach of her abuser contacting her again and all of those things. I felt it. I went on this journey with her, and I hope all of you do too. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start this podcast off. I hope all of you love BB as much as I do. We have become besties, and I cannot wait for all of you to get to know her like I do. All right, guys, let's dive in. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit in detail about your story, if you're okay with that, and just take us down that journey. When people do pick up your book, and I'll let you go into detail about this, but you identify as 3 different people in the book, basically, but they're all you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that came to be because so I experienced the domestic violence, and I touch on a few different sexual assaults as well. But then by the time that I was writing about them and weaving it into a story, I felt like I was a different person. Like I was the same person, obviously, but I was a different version of myself. And so what it really came to be was I was essentially, when I wrote the domestic violence and abuse scenes when I was younger, and sexual assault scenes when I was younger. And then I put it all away for like almost a decade. And then when I picked it back up to write about it, what I did first was write letters to that younger self of mine. So that's how this all started, was that the book originally was Katie's character, and then Alex was her therapist. And so you, as the reader, you would think that Katie was writing in a diary and then giving them to Alex. Alex was reading them and then writing back to her. And then at the end, you would find out that actually they were the same person. And my editor was like, no, doesn't make sense. Can't do it. Doesn't follow the rules. Can I make it my own rules?
All
no.
say that. They all say that.
How could we sell it? What genre would it fit into? It doesn't make sense. It's not possible. And so I just came about it from a different way. I knew that it was really important to me to talk about what led up to me. Like I just told you, the perfect storm. Like what led up to that happening? What happened so that I essentially was in a position where I was the perfect prey for a predator? So that was important. And then obviously the relationship with the domestic abuse and sexual violence. And then I wanted to show, once you are quote unquote free of them, are you really free? You probably aren't. And even if you are, you probably don't feel very free. And so I wanted to show that even though a decade or whatever amount of time had passed, I wanted to show how that person was actually functioning. And then The third person actually ended up coming in again because it took me so darn long to write my book because I just kept putting it away for so long and picking it up. It was really hard. It was the hardest thing I've ever done by far. And so the third person came because I'm like, well, now I'm almost 20 years out, or I guess depending on when you start counting, 20 years out. And so now I want to show that part of it too, because even 20 years out, I'm still impacted by this almost every day in one way or another. And so that's how the 3 characters were born. And not to worry, it's not like a huge spoiler alert. I mean, anyone who knew me, who read the book, like, speak volumes of it and really enjoyed it. And it didn't wreck anything for them that they knew all 3 characters were me. So I don't think that should stop anyone from reading it, but that's how it came to be. So where do you want me to go from here?
Well, you just start at the beginning, like your home life. Obviously, I know because I read the book and how your abuser came in and isolated you from everyone. And you write everything so well in detail. You could remember like a cookie crumb being on the floor. And I'm looking back at like the 30 years of my life, and most of it's just like black. I can remember being at a certain place or something, but as far as the homes that I've lived in, I don't remember anything that happened inside of those homes. I have very little memory. And when I was reading your book, I was like, man, I wished I had started journaling 20 years ago, because just the way that you write. And like you said, it's not confusing reading your book at all. I was like, whoa. So when I was reading, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, Alex is okay. It's all the same person. And it was so exciting because honestly, people don't write books like that. And I think that's what's going to make your book excel. But I want the listeners to hear a little bit about the beginning of the story, what was going on in your home that forced you then into the abuser's arms, and how things unfolded from there.
Okay. Yeah. So I come from a great family. I'm close with them again now and for many, many years, decades now. But there was a period of time, which is a tough time in any kid's life when you're going through puberty, just before that and during it and just after, and we're all a bit of a mess. And I've always been like really the only emotional person in my family. I don't know how that came to be. I don't know where I came from. Talk about wondering if you were actually adopted and they never told you. I'm just so different from all of my family members. And so the perfect storm ended up being, and I didn't know this then, of course, I was a child, but what ended up happening, and I found out many years later, is that my dad had an affair. And my mom had found out, and this had gone on for a long time, and it pretty much obviously devastated her. And for a long period of time, it really negatively impacted their relationship and then obviously our family. I did not know this. Next thing I know, my family is selling our house in the city. We're moving to butt fart nowhere land. I didn't honestly, I didn't know. I honestly believed that people would be riding horses to school. That's how much of a city girl I was. I had no idea. And I didn't want to go. I had my friends, I had a boyfriend that I still loved, and I didn't want to go. And there was never any conversation about why we were moving, except for that at one point, I think when I'd kind of pushed hard enough, it was like, well, we don't want you starting high school in the city because they already have metal detectors at the high school. And you're already starting to rebel. So I'm not saying that those were the exact words, but it was something along those lines, that I was the concern and my safety and what I would be getting into and the friends I might be meeting and such. And so I kind of internalized that too. So then we moved to butt fart nowhere land. And not only were we in the country, but my parents' house, they still live there today. It is in the middle of 108 acres. The driveway is over a half a mile long. Okay. I'm telling you, it's in the middle of nowhere. So that happened. I was totally isolated, physically, emotionally. This is back before we had, long distance was still a thing. You couldn't call people without it racking up a bill. It was an hour-ish drive away. I didn't have a license. I was 14 years old, just turned. There's no social media, hardly anyone even had I guess everyone kind of had a computer in the house. Not everyone, but if you were lucky, but it didn't do anything like this. And so that was like a death. It felt like every single person that I'd ever known had just died, plane crash, died. because there was no closure, there was no visiting, it was awful. And then I started into grade 8 past the middle of the year. There was only 3 months until we were off for the summer, so that didn't really give enough time to build a connection. And I was from the city, and it's like the city country rivals, right? And so I was bullied, like light bullying at that time. It wasn't physical, but I just couldn't find my place, and I'd never experienced that before, and it just really messed with my mind. And so I started, acting out at home and having, I was a teenager, I was 14. My parents, I didn't know that they were going through something. I thought that it was because of me, right? And then it did become because of me, because I was being a little twat, but I didn't share anything. And so that's what I want to make clear, and I hope I make clear in the book, is like, I didn't come home and tell my parents what was going on with me. But my mom has shared with me, we've had great conversations about this, like, she didn't have the capacity to be what I needed then either. Like, we were both just in our own little worlds and just suffering in silence and like not knowing what to do with it. So that happened. And then I just wanted love. I was so desperate for love, and I wasn't getting it from home, not in the way that I feel love. I wasn't getting it from friendships at school. I really didn't have any. And so what else do you do? I'm 14, 15, as the time goes on, and, boys are interested. And so I'm like, here it is. Like, this is my shot. This is my chance. This is my love. This one's forever. And you know how we do when we're teenagers. And I had like back to back to back, what I call soft core sexual assaults. Like, they were sexual assaults, and I call them soft core because it's different than, unfortunately, the ones I have continued to experience as I got older. But they were really damaging, and they really set the path in a really, on a dangerous route. And so the more that was happening, and I never gave up. I've always said, always give your 100%, because if you drop down to even 99, you might miss that 1%. And so I just kept trying. And then there was a period in there where I actually left home. I'd met some older kids in town who were the woman I moved in with was 7 years older than me. And so that's significant when you're 16 and she's 23, and some of her friends were a bit older than her and some were a bit younger, and most of them had either already graduated high school or a lot were high school dropouts. And so I just kind of started getting in with this crowd that felt like I had a sense of belonging. I wasn't being judged. I was being accepted. Like, it felt good. But it was hard for me to maintain my marks, and education was always really important to me, because that is the way that I felt love from my parents. They had high expectations, and I didn't want to let them down. And so I ended up moving back home, and I was home for about a year, and some nasty boyfriend stuff kept happening. And then, I met this predator, and I met him right after I had broken up with a longer term boyfriend. We'd been together for just over a year, and I was really feeling upset about that and sad about that. And so I met this man, and I knew that he was older, but I had no idea how old. And to be honest, it didn't matter to me. He fit into my friend group. He knew people I knew, and that was enough for me. And my gosh, did my whole life change. Like, this man said everything I ever wanted to hear. Like, I couldn't even dream of the things that this man was saying to me and things that he was doing. And I mean, of course, looking back, a lot of them were silly things. He had a car. Well, that's a pretty silly thing, but when you're a teenager, right? Or he was of age, he could buy cigarettes. I smoked then, or alcohol, or he was, it was all superficial things, but I just thought I had hit the jackpot. And he loved me. He put me up on this pedestal, and he, love bombed me. We didn't know what that was back then, but that's exactly what was happening. And he started in really quick on you are so mature for your age, and you are so brilliant, and your parents are idiots, and they don't know who you are, and they can't cage you in, and like all these things. I was like, yeah, yeah, you know me and you get me and you get my, idiot parents and like they don't appreciate me. And he just knew exactly what to say and to how to come in between us and make that wedge bigger and bigger and bigger. And one thing that he did in the early, and don't get me wrong, I did enough damage for myself with my family. 100% I did. But he took that to another level. And so the first thing he ever did was the first time I had ever seen anyone, I knew some of our friends were dabbling in cocaine, but I had never seen it. I had never seen it and never seen anyone do it. And I caught him doing it one night and he offered me a line and I did it. And I thought I was going to die. I have anxiety. Like it was not a good plan for many reasons.
In the Sexual Assault Survivor Stories podcast, brave victims and survivors take to the mic to share their raw and honest journey and help normalize the conversation. This podcast is a safe space for empathy, healing, and solidarity. Hear the truth, feel the strength, and join the conversation. I'm your host, Dave Markell. Listen in to a new episode each week wherever you get your podcasts. Sexual Assault Survivor Stories, the SAS podcast, because every voice deserves to be heard.
But having undiagnosed at the time anxiety disorder, definitely not good. And he decided to use that as the exact moment late at night when I was high out of my tree in my head about, am I going to choke to death? Am I going to die? Am I going to survive this? Am I going to have a heart attack? To take me back to my parents to like get some of my things. And so my mom saw me come in and I don't know that we've never actually talked about it. I'm not sure if she remembers that or if she knew I was messed up, but I for surely thought she knew. And so that was the first thing. And then the next thing was he decided like I didn't have all of my things. And so we were going to go and get all of my things one day. And we got all of my things. But then he and this friend that he brought started to say that they were going to dismantle my bed and my wardrobe. And I'm like, no, like that's my parents' stuff. But he had this way always like he would say, well, is it their stuff? Like, if you're not going to be here anymore, do they need it? Or would it just sit in here not being used? And if you're not here anymore, then do you need it? Yeah, you do, because you don't have anything. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And he would always say things like, I'm relieving them of you and their duties of you. And like, now it's on me to look after you. So the least you can do is like, help me get your things. And so it was like, in my early 40s now, me is like, that is crazy. And he's playing you and he's being manipulative. But me then I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense. And he would always double down by saying things like, they don't want you. They can't stand you. They're going to be so happy that you're not here anymore that they won't care. And so then it was so hurtful that then I would be like, well, fuck them. Like, yeah, then, right? And so he was just like this master manipulator. And anyway, that wasn't even the worst of it. He ended up dropping me off at my practicum. Like I had a high school practicum. And fast forward later on when I got home, I started noticing some familiar things. And I thought that he'd gone and gotten all my favorite foods. And I ended up discovering that he had gone back to my parents' house while I was at school, essentially. And he had robbed them. And I never actually knew everything because he wouldn't really ever tell me. I knew that he had stolen. This was before Y2K. It was like literally months before the whole Y2K was the world going to end. My dad had like a really big, if bunker stuff, right? Like just in case. And so he had stolen all of that. I knew that. I could tell by the things that were at the house, but he had gotten money before I got home from work. So he had stolen stuff and I could never really figure out what it was because my parents to this day, they spend their money very wisely. They love to travel, so they'll spend it on that. And they're big on like paying off their mortgage and like they're not material people. So I really couldn't figure out, like he didn't take their TVs, for example. That would be laughable to him, but because they'd be so old and not, great. So I couldn't figure out. So it wasn't obviously until years later when I reconnected with my family and they for years, for literally maybe even still until this day, I honestly don't know to this very day if my family actually believes me that I did not rob them. Yes, I took I took my
Oh.
things and their things that were in my bed, my wardrobe, my desk. Yes, 100% I did. But I found out that he had stolen some of my mom's jewelry that was her parents. And they blamed me for that. Like they thought I did that. And I didn't do that. And so that was something that I knew what they would be thinking and feeling. So I felt like I couldn't reach out for help anymore. And he just drove that point home. He would just say, like, they're never going to take you back now. You think they're going to want to take you back after he'd say what we did. And so then it was playing on my mind, like, well, at first it was like, well, yeah, I did agree eventually to the bed and the wardrobe and the desk. But as the years went on, it was like he was trying to get me to take more responsibility than was mine too. So it was just a mind fuck, Sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I think I already swore
No,
once.
you are. You're fine.
Okay. So that's how it started. But I mean, that didn't last forever either, because as he started to show his true colors, then I started to get more scared and lonely. And I just really missed my family. Like we were always a really close-knit family, like until, that time where we were all struggling, and I just really missed them. And so I started, like, I was still in school at the time, and I started kind of making little comments about missing them. Or one time I said, like, I think I'm going to try to talk to my sisters, and he freaked. And I said, no, like, I won't move home. I just want to talk to them. I just want a relationship. And he was like, no, it's me or them. You have to choose. And, abuse, I don't have to tell you this, or probably any of your listeners, but they only need to do as much as they need to do to control you. Like, so you could go hypothetically for years without anything happening until they feel like they're losing you. Then they have to do something. And so, what I wrote about in my book were the worst things that I experienced in my relationship. And I wrote them down very early upon being free of that. But there were lots of really good times too. So that's where the confusion comes in, right? Anyway, he when he thought he was losing me, when I started saying, like, I'm gonna talk to my sisters and I need to go to school, and he would say, no, you're not. And he ended up using something against me that I told him the night that he picked me up when I left my house for the last time with him. He said I had said that I never felt like I was really loved, and it's certainly not like the same amount as my sisters. And my one sister, she hates when I say this, but it's true. Everyone, not just me and not just our other sister, but like her name's Tara, and like she's kind of the golden child. She's like this perfect personality wise, chill, gorgeous, like just like goes along, like when she was a kid, especially, like goes along with whatever. And her and my mom were really close. She didn't give my mom a hard time. I gave my mom a really hard time. And so I had shared with him that I had these fantasies that, one day some like a robber would come into our house and he would tie us all up, and he would make my mom like choose her favorite child. And it was just so that I could hear her admit it, because she wouldn't admit it. And I don't think any parents, well, not any, most parents would not admit it anyway. But she did say to me one time, it's not that I love Tara more than you, it's just that she's easier to love. Now, she does not remember saying that. She swears up and down she doesn't, but you remember things that are scarring to you. And I understand what she was trying to say. I get it. We all say things we don't mean, and you just can't take them back, right? But I'd shared this fantasy with him, and it was actually, I was sharing something because I felt really guilty about it, and I felt a lot of shame about it, and I didn't want to think about that, but it was kind of like I felt like I was being gaslit by my own family. Like, don't pretend you love us all the same. It's pretty clear you don't. That's how I was feeling. Anyway, he ended up using that against me many months later, and he said, you remember that twisted fantasy that you had? He said, well, if you keep trying to connect with your family, or if you keep telling me that you're wanting to do that, he said, I'll do it for real, and I'll do it at gunpoint, and it'll be life or death. And so that's when he started threatening my family, and I thought, oh my God, is he capable of this? And he was, definitely in the wrong crowd, and I knew my place for sure, and I saw how women were treated, and I kind of felt like I was like the lucky one. I think just maybe because of my age, or I don't know, I was kind of more left alone, but I saw how other women were treated, and so you learn your place, and I was scared. And I won't wreck a bunch of things in the book, but like a bunch of things happened that made me realize who he was and what he was capable of and who he was connected to and what they were capable of. And I just didn't know what to do. And as things got worse and I was isolated more, I, kind of, you get your nerve up again and you try again to be strong or break free or leave. And then he did something that really made me know and believe that he was capable of killing me or my family or whoever stood in the way. And it was right around that time, within days of that happening, that he moved us across the country. So from Ontario, Canada to British Columbia, Canada. And we had a long distance block on the phone that only he could have access to. There was one mail key. I had no friends, no family. And then things just got worse.
What was the initial, how old were you when you met him and how old was he?
Oh yeah, I was 17 and he was 31. So I try to share this part because it's interesting. People are interesting. People, myself included, we like to go, well, 17 is almost 18. And well, now that we're in our 30s or 40s, 14 years isn't a huge difference, but it is. And more than that, this man continued that pattern after me. This man continued when he was 38 years old. He had a child with a girl that turned 16 in and around the same day that that baby was born, which means that he impregnated her when she was 15 years old. So this was a pattern for him. And I was maybe one of the, not the older ones, because the one before me was a little bit older than me, but it was a pattern. And so that is called an ephebophile. Not technically a pedophile. It's when someone's attracted to like that older adolescent, even when they're inappropriately aged for that, but not like children. So
yeah, but I mean, at that time, you're mentally not even developed enough to know like what you're doing is wrong. That's why it's the adult's heart to say this isn't right, that's wrong. I mean, I'm 37 and I could not imagine dating someone in their teens or even 20 or 21. Like, just mentally, your life is just so different.
You know what's wild? And this is kind of like I guess this is a bit of a twisted thought, but so I've spent the majority of my career being a school counselor, like in the schools, giving social, emotional, mental health, familial help to kids. And the majority of my career, 15, 16, 17 years of it were with kindergarten all the way up to grade 12 in 3 different provinces. And I remember every year doing, because I do a genogram. So I find out when the kid was born and how old are they now and what year were they born. And then, of course, I'm always thinking in my head, oh, okay, so this would be the difference. Okay, that's really messed up. And I would do this all the way along. And I remember as I approached 31, I felt so sick for the whole year, honestly, that I was 30, 31, 32, because I thought, oh my gosh, this is the age he was when he was with me. And I'm working with all these high school students. And what? Sure, yeah, lots of them are mature. Yep, lots of them are intelligent. Those are the things he told me, but they're not dateable. Like, they're not, like, what is going through your mind? And then I played that little, like, game's not the right word, but I did that little comparison all the way up until I was 38, because that's when I saw him for the last time, eyeball to eyeball anyway. And that's when he had this, like, 1 and a bit year old with this girl that by that time was about 17. And so all the way up until once I was 38 and even 39 and even 40, because you're just like, no, I'm working with these 16, 17, like, there's no way. So yeah, it's really messed up.
It's extreme. It's super messed up, I think. So how many years was it before you were able to break free? And then how many years between you breaking free? Was there like no contact? And then like, when did he contact you again eventually?
So we were together for 2 years, and I hate saying this, and my editor hates it even more. But I didn't break free from him. He left me twice, actually. He left me, and That's in the book. You'll read that. And that really was a mind fuck on me, because he told me that he was dying and he had a brain tumor, and he'd had a lot of really bizarre neurological things going on that were very visible. It was very obvious. He wasn't able to work anymore. Like, there was something not right. But I mean, I was a kid. I didn't know what it was. His mom had MS. I didn't know what really that was, but there was something going on with him. And so he told me that, and I believed him, and then did this mind fuck, because then I had been planning on leaving him. I had a plan in place. I was working toward it. I was just trying to convince him that it was his idea not to come back to Ontario with me to finish my high school, essentially. Not that it was my idea to leave him. I knew he wouldn't come back. So I was trying to make that work. And so the closer we got to him knowing like that I was going to go home, he came up with this plan, told me that he was dying, and left me there. And so then I moved home anyway, but it was a real mind fuck, because I thought, oh my gosh, like, what am I doing? I'm an empath. That's a big part of why he wanted me in the first place, right? And I wanted to help, and I was scared for him, and I felt bad, and I rethought everything. And so then I moved home, and then he pretended like we'd never broken up. So there's almost a couple months where that was confusing. And then he left again, which really messed me up. And he actually did contact me during that time that he was gone again. I didn't write that in the book because it's already long, but he did contact me, and it was confusing, and it was all the things. And he didn't have a number I could reach him on. It was just when he called me or if he sent me a letter. And then I kind of got on with my life. I started dating my original crush, and it was going really great. And he showed back up. And by that time, I knew I was done. It was 5 months after. And I knew I was done, but I also knew I wasn't safe, because he had come unhinged. Like, all of the stuff he'd done to me before had been very private, behind closed doors. Nobody believed it. Not even my, at the time, current boyfriend, who they had been really close friends. He was younger than him, but still, nobody believed it. But when he came back to try to win me back, he was slipping. He beat me up in the middle of a bar in front of people. He stalked me and spent the entire night outside my partner's window waiting for us to come out. He stalked me at my work. I mean, it was dangerous. I knew I was in really big trouble, but I also didn't know what to do about it. I had no idea what to do about it. And so technically, I mean, yes, I stood firm that time and said, no, not interested. No, don't want to be with you. He proposed to me, all the things, but he ended up making a plan to kill me, to sexually assault me and then kill me. And I had a mutual friend that I was supposed to be with and I wasn't. And he'd gone there, again, the stalking, thinking I was going to be there. And he called to warn me and told me to hide. And shit went down, not with me, but before they were able to get to me. And he ended up being arrested and went to jail. And so that is how I essentially was able to break free, but not really, because then he wrote me letters, which are in the book, from jail for years. And once he was out, he was still contacting me. And then, I mean, it really didn't end. I'm married to the most amazing man on the face of the planet. I'm the luckiest woman ever. Thank God I came full circle. It is possible. People out there listening, it is possible. I promise. Just hold out for it. But we've been together. We just completed 9 years. And the last time I actually heard from my abusive ex, from when I was 17, 18, 19, 20, was on my 34th birthday since I've been with my current partner. He was still sending me Our Song, which is the name of the book. He was still saying, hey, cutie, reach back out. Be nice to connect with you. Yeah. But that was the last time. I think he's dead now. I don't know for sure. I sure as heck hope so. That's part of why I'm being a little bit careful with my name and going by BB instead of my legal first name. I don't think that he knows, my married name.
Hi, my name is Doug Buggle, and I am a recent survivor of narcissistic abuse. This was definitely the most difficult time of my life. I have written a book called Goodbye Tammy, Third Time Was Not a Charm, Surviving Narcissistic Abuse. I wrote this book to share my story and to help others realize that abuse has no gender and that there is healing after a narcissistic abusive relationship. I also wrote this book to help you be aware, to see the red flags before this happens, to save yourself entering a toxic abusive relationship. Thank you so much, and my book is available on Amazon.com and wherever books are sold.
But I don't know, we do still have loose acquaintances because we did live in the same small town for a handful of years each. And I'm just hoping that I have a big enough support system now, and I know what's out there as far as what's right and wrong, and police and services. And, like, I just have to trust that I'm far enough removed from it, and that if he did come across my book, I would hope that he's not stupid enough to be like, she's talking about me. Because, like, what idiot would put up their hands and be like, that was me. That's me she's writing about. Like, just be quiet. Just be quiet and stay gone.
A narcissist who wants to be famous,
even if you're
girl,
in
don't jail.
Get me started. I know, but I'm trying not to tell myself that part. I'm like, no.
Well,
yeah.
I want everybody to go buy your book because it's almost like reading a thriller mystery. It kept me on edge. I absolutely loved reading it. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned out of all of that? Because, we are now in the month of February, so Valentine's Day here in the States. I don't know if you guys have that. Do you have that in Canada? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, us.
Is it still on the same day, February 14th?
Yep. Yeah. And you know what's funny, Jackie, and your listeners won't know this. We didn't talk about this ahead of time. You can vouch for this, but I actually considered saying to you, hey, like, what do you think about us maybe, because I have a story I'm about to share about the title and how I've reframed that. And I thought, what do you think if we can like share this because of Valentine's Day coming up, and it can be like, yeah, the shitty side of love, the hateful side of love, but then I can like reframe it and show what it can turn into. And then you just said it and we didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, it's because we connect, girl.
We do, why. I know. Girl, the first second you wrote out to me, I knew that we were going to be forever friends, but yes. Okay. So Valentine's Day. Yes. So, well, you asked two questions. One, what was I think you said something about biggest lesson, and then connecting Valentine's Day too. So I guess I'll come back to the lesson because it's kind of separate. But so the title of the book is No Ordinary Love, as in the song by Sade. And that was his song for us, which, to be honest, and I didn't say this in the book, but I always thought it was a little bit weird because it's not actually like a lovey love song. It's a painful song. And I always remember being like, okay, well, whatever, what do I know? And so that is what, and I already kind of mentioned this, but he would use my age against me. So it's funny because he started with, you're so mature, you're so intelligent, you're so whatever. But as soon as he wanted, he would flip that to like, you're too young to understand. Like when you grow up, you'll get it. And so anyway, so that was part of it. I was like, well, what do I understand about love? I guess this is love. I don't know. And so that's the title of the book. But in the process of me writing the book, especially by the last time, when I picked up my book to finally sit my butt down and finish it no matter what, was because my little sister was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And we knew that she didn't know, but we knew that she wasn't going to make it. She refused to be told, as she called it, a death date. But we knew. And I thought, shit, the whole reason initially that I wanted to write my story was so that I could tell my parents and my sisters what happened to me, that they still didn't know. He and I didn't break up, and I went home and told them everything. I literally never said anything, ever. Sure, I started saying it was bad. You guys don't understand. It was worse than you know, but I never said what had happened. And I always thought I had time because we're human, and that's what we think. Oh, we got time. Yeah. We don't have time. We don't have time. And I always thought, well, my parents are getting older. Okay, like my dad this year is 82. He'll be turning 83 this year. So I knew that like, okay, well, dad's getting up there, but he won't read it anyway. I know he won't. I never thought that my baby sister, it would be her I had to race the clock for. And so that's when I was like, that's it. I'm picking this up and I'm writing every single day until it's done. And spoiler alert, I was not successful. I did not get my story completed in time for my sister to.
I'm so sorry, babe.
But I do believe that she is aware of it. I won't get into beliefs and stuff, but I do believe that she's aware of it, and she helped to push me forward and help me get it done. And
of course she did.
So my point, So my point about your like the title is that in writing it, I reframed it. I was like, no, fuck him. This is that was our song, but And it's true, that was no ordinary love in the abusive sense, in the worst possible relationship sense. But I'm reframing it because I've got this no ordinary love of my family. I had them before. We saw this through. We're stronger than ever. We're showing up for one another. And that's really what it's about. And then by the time I finished the book, I was like, well, hang on a second. Because people started asking me, like, who'd you write it for? Well, first it was for my family. But then, of course, I want to help others. But then I was like, well, this was so healing. It was so therapeutic for me to do. And it really helped me. Like, I don't know if you know much about parts work, but it was really helping me to integrate all of my parts of myself that I had externalized and shamed and, picked apart and disowned for so long. It really helped me to love them all, be who they needed to be, bring it all together and be like, a much more whole self. And so then it became like the no ordinary love of me for myself. And so it just was this just this journey of what that the title of the book and the song itself and what it came to mean for me. And now, no, I'm not like, he doesn't get the credit for that anymore. The joke's on him because he's a piece of shit and I'm stronger than ever. And I'm a thriver. And I'm closer with my family now than I maybe even would have been if I didn't go through this. So I've got my life full of no ordinary loves in the positive.
Yes, you do. I mean, your life completely blew up, but rebuilt itself so much stronger than it was prior. And then now, look, you have this amazing husband. You have a book out. Not everyone can say that. I mean, you're doing so great. And I know your book is going to help so many people. And, it's not weird that, you would refer to yourself as different people. We all dissociate. We have to survive, especially with all the guilt and shame that abuse brings on us. And, I've recently started having an identity crisis myself because I'm only a year and a half out. And I think to myself sometimes, I've healed so much and I've changed so much. And what I look for in any relationship now, friendship, family, whatever, is so different. I'm like, I really don't know who I am. And this new version of me isn't full circle yet. And it can be scary because you're like, I don't know who I am right now. And you're looking at yourself like this outside thing. But girl, you did it. You did it. I look up to you so much because I want to write a book. I want to be able to help other people. And your book is going to hit home for people because it's so everyday life. And I can guarantee you someone's going to pick up your book that has went through the same thing. I mean, there's still people today that a 30-something-year-old will start dating them and they're a teenager and they don't see it as abuse still.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I just was having dinner with a friend the other week and last night there was a child psychologist that got busted, and the dinner that we were talking about was a teacher that got busted for child luring and showing inappropriate content and all the stuff. And even she was like, well, he was hot. All of us girls, we all had crushes on him. I'm like, well, that is normal for kids to think, but it was his job to not do anything. And then she was like, yeah, well, he didn't. So we've all talked and we can't see him doing what they're saying he's doing now. And that's where it gets dangerous, right? Just because you didn't see a certain version of somebody, just because you didn't witness it, does not mean it's not in there. And we need to listen and we need to believe and we need to or just be quiet. If you can't be supportive and if you can't believe and if you can't suspend your belief, if that's what's needed, then you just need to be quiet because this stuff doesn't come out of a vacuum, right? It doesn't.
Yeah. And the percentage of people that lie about abuse and especially sexual abuse is so low. It's this isn't something that people love to talk about. This is really hard to talk about. And it's not something that we think we're going to get famous for? Do you think that I want to be known for someone that went through narcissistic abuse that kept going back into, abusive relationships over and over again? No. So yes, half of the people on this podcast have been through it. They've been through the not being believed part. But the other part too is the people that are abusers and their friends and family that do see it, but they still support them. They're just as bad.
100%. 100%. Well, one of the things I would say, and I've been saying this a lot recently, is aside from my writing in my book, my own stories, and then writing back to my younger self and all of that, I really stayed away from anything to do with domestic violence and sexual violence. I did actually volunteer for a sexual assault crisis line for a while in university, and I was like, whoa, I'm way too close to this, can't do it. I always wanted to get back to it and or start domestic violence support, but I just knew I wasn't ready. I didn't want to end up in jail. I don't think I could stay boundaried. And But what I'm trying to say is I kept that very separate. When I wrote about it, but otherwise than that, I had to do it for me. And when I started my book Instagram in June, I cannot tell you and everybody else enough how flippin' instantly therapeutic it was. I wish I had been tapped into that, to our community so long ago. Again, when I first came out of this, there wasn't really such a thing yet, but there has been for a long time now. Even if you're going to be quiet, even if you're just going to be an observer, even if you're just scrolling the feeds, even if you never make a comment, you never make a post, so much healing can come from just witnessing what the rest of us in the community are sharing or talking about or whatever. And I just can't say enough. It was a totally untapped, for me, resource that what a bunch of wasted time. So I like to just say that for anybody who, if you're not ready for therapy, if you can't afford therapy, if you don't like therapy, if you don't have a friend group that believes you or can handle hearing your story, don't even get me started on that topic, or whatever the case may be. If you feel like you're in it alone, you're not in it alone. Go and find some social media accounts, people like me, people like you, people like the followers that we have and that we follow, and just start being part of a community, because it is words cannot express how life-changing it has been for me just since June. And I didn't think I needed much more than what I have been doing for myself.
Yeah. Social media was what saved me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I obviously had been on social media. When I was with my last ex, and even the guy before him, I think all I had was Instagram. I had deactivated my Facebook. Social media was way too triggering for me. There was so much negativity on it. And then it was when I decided to heal, when I had to make a choice between life or death, I had to make a choice between healing or ending my own life, is when the community that I have now opened up, and it was on TikTok. I found Randy White, other people contacted me, and it just started rolling from there. And I got all the education that I needed. Of course, I had a therapist, but honestly, I got more education off of TikTok than I did from my own therapist, to be honest.
I totally get it, believe it, can relate, and I am a therapist, so
yeah.
It's not to down therapy or therapist. It's not, but it's unlimited access. However hungry you are for the information or for the research or for the connection or for the tools it's not an hour a week or a month, or if you even have access to therapy at all. It's unlimited. And I really feel like that's an untapped resource. And I wonder if it's for a lot of people for the same reason it was for me. I just didn't think I could go there. But it's about choosing the right accounts to follow. It's about knowing, I had a lot of positive pressure, but pressure from people when I was trying to build my account that were you have to get in there. You have to talk. You have to. No, you don't. You don't. That's really
You
triggering
don't.
for me because people can then fight back. And there have been a couple things that have happened on TikTok, especially where I just like haven't gone back in. And even one thing recently on Instagram that just shut me down and I just froze and I thought, I'm not going to do this. You don't have to take part in the conversation. You don't have to comment on posts. You don't have to respond to comments on your post. If you post, you can just be an observer. And that's what I would probably suggest that people do. And again, most importantly, be careful who you follow. If it's somebody that you find to be really negative or really, whatever it is that's a trigger for you, just don't follow that person. Don't let them follow you. Be really selective with who you let in your social media circle, because it actually can have more impact sometimes than our physical circles in our real life.
100%. Yeah. And if you're just starting off healing, one comment, negative comment can set you off, trigger you, make you want to give up on healing. You have to be so careful.
Yeah.
I
absolutely.
luckily got really lucky with mine. I got really, really lucky with mine. I want to say like 99% positivity on all of my accounts. But also, I think anyone that listens to me kind of knows that like, I don't put up with shit. And so I'm going to let you know, or I will just straight up block you. I just block people. I don't care anymore.
My friend I had two friends who were like really persistent with me about TikTok. And I have to say, I personally hate TikTok. It's not my thing. I've tried. I'm not there. But anyway, I posted one thing and all the men that the post was, I just shared a post. I didn't write it. I just shared a meme. And it wasn't even like man hating or anything like that. In fact, I read it to my husband, my best guy friend, any man who would listen. No, not a problem. But let me tell you, the people they were talking about, they came out of the woodworks. It blew up. And I had no idea. And I only at the time, I was only checking into TikTok once a day with an alarm to force myself to do it. And I went in and this one post had blown up and all of these piece of shit to come out of the woodworks to be commenting, insulting me, calling me names, all sorts of things. And it was so triggering. I just shut it down, didn't go in, got in my head about it. And my one of the two friends that was persistent about getting me on TikTok, I saw her and she's like, oh no, she's like, let's do it together. She's like, I just call it whack-a-mole. We report, we delete, we report, we delete, we laugh, we whatever. And she's like, this is just how you do it. Like and I just needed some help to like see it in that frame of mind, but also to give myself permission to not have to ever look at any comments, not to respond to any comments, turn comments off. You don't have to participate in that. I really wish that TikTok would have an option, kind of like online dating, that you can like choose a gender to stick to. Not that all women are perfect and not that all men aren't, but I would prefer to be able to pick and choose who can see what I post.
Well, just letting you know from other survivors that are women, when women start posting, some women, when they start posting about anything that has to do with abuse, it's like it triggers unhealed men to their core. And you know what? It takes a while for you to build a callus up to that. But now I'm like, make my video go viral, make my post go viral. I don't care. Y'all can sit here and argue with each other all day long, every day. I'm not going to read it. So, like, it's on you. Like, you're just making my stuff go viral. So I don't even care.
Exactly what my friend said. And more than that, that is true. And I thought, okay, I can frame it that way. That makes sense to me. But actually, the bigger thing that happened that made me feel so much better was I just sat back and I watched the other women in my community and men and some men. They did the job for me. They got in there. And there's back and forth and there's whatever. And I just sat back with my popcorn and was like, okay, my girls and some guys have got me. I don't even need to do this. I just put it here and sat back and it took care of itself. And then that was the end of that. So yeah.
Don't feed any energy to it.
No. And I feel like I just need to give a little warning because I feel so strongly about the healing that has happened for me since I have had my book social media, but there is a downside to it if you're not careful. So you just have to protect your energy. Just protect your energy. And it's harder to do that with TikTok, in my opinion. So I'm not doing much.
It's weird. I have the complete opposite like experience. I mean, I've maybe had like 2 or 3 bad comments on TikTok. One guy, I was just doing like one of my like, hi, I'm Jackie Hall. I'm the host of the Healing Sex podcast. Like, I'm an abuse survivor, blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't know what I was talking about that day, but whatever. And he's like, cry me a river, shut up and go make me a sandwich. Yeah, so there's those people on there, but I don't know. I just laugh at it because it's obviously they're triggered and they're trying to get under your skin. So if it bothers me to like reread it, then I'll just delete it. If not, I'll just let people go at it on there. Just whatever.
Thanks.
Yeah. You do have to be careful though, like you said. So obviously with social media, you're opening yourself up to the world. But I feel like it's so much easier now to come out as a victim or a survivor than it ever has been.
Totally.
All right, love. Drop all your where we can find you. Obviously, you already said we can get your book, No Ordinary Love, off of Amazon right now. And then anything else that you would like the listeners to be able to contact you at. And I will drop all the links in the show notes below, as always, guys.
So yeah, my book is available globally on Amazon. And yes, that's been tested out from my friends all around the world. So that's pretty cool. No Ordinary Love. And my author name is BB, no periods, just BB, Gabriel. And then my Instagram has got a lot of periods. So it's the title of the book, No period, Ordinary period, Love, _ BB, period, Gabriel. I should have thought of that. I should have made it shorter, but that's what it is. And my TikTok is something similar. I think it's the same as my Instagram, but there's no Gabriel. It's just _ BB. I don't use that a lot, but maybe I'll give it another try. I don't know. I'm on a bit of a little break, but
yeah.
And then,
okay.
I'd love to stay connected with, or to get connected and stay connected with anybody that listens to this and would like to connect. I just said that.
Yeah.
That's
everybody go add BB on her socials. Like I said, I literally put the link in my show notes below. So all they have to do is just click on the link. It takes them directly to all of your social medias. Go give her a like, a follow, buy her book, leave her a 5-star review.
No, I want honest reviews. Honestly, like, I cannot stress that enough. I would love reviews. Reviews are where it's at, but I want them to be honest. If you think it's garbage or if you think it's too much, like, I've got trigger warnings, content warnings, resources, you name it. I think I put it in, but if I missed something or if there's something you didn't like, or I want you to be honest. So, but yes, leave a review. Even if it's not positive, leave a review.
Okay. Well, I'm leaving you a 5-star review. I know I said I was going to do it last week and I completely forgot. So I'm going to do that as soon as we get off here. All right, love. I am so blessed to have you, not just as an acquaintance now, but I consider you a close friend. We talk every day, and me and my boys will be bringing our pretty little butts over to Canada.
Yeah.
Because
we're ready for
tired.
you, but you don't want to come right
Oh.
now.
Well, whatever. I mean, nothing can be worse than the United States right now than maybe like North Korea or something.
Yeah, you guys are a bit of a mess. We're just cold right now, but I've told you this. You are welcome anytime. You have got a tour guide in me. You've got an accommodation that you can stay at. We would love to have your dogs as well. And I've lived in 4 of our provinces, so I know a lot of people and a lot of fun places. So you come on out anytime.
I need all the scenes. I need waterfalls. I need hiking spots. I need like the Instagram capture moment, and not for Instagram, but for myself, for my brain.
Girl, I've got you. We'll figure it out. And then you can do a podcast from here.
Yeah, of course. Yes, we will. All right, love.
Okay.
It was so great having you on today. We'll be in touch. And to everyone else, I'll have another episode come out on the 13th, which is the day before Valentine's Day. So if it's a day that you like, cool. If it's a day you don't like, that's cool also. You know, fuck the holidays. I always say that. So anyways, love you all. Until next week. Bye.
Bye.